Just now I was trying to find a spot to make a quick video, and I was by this glass building, and when I was next to the glass there were so many reflections on my iPhone screen that I couldn't really see myself, and I don't even need to see myself, but it made me feel like it's going to show up on the video, but maybe some of the reflections would. My point being, when there's all these extra image reflections all over the place, it's kind of disorientating, and that's what we do when we think thoughts overlapping with reality. And that goes with part of what I wanted to talk to myself about, was how today it feels like every perception is a communication. It feels like the opposite of so-called psychosis, where each way I turn looks like the end. And it feels like each thing I see is a rich communication that could be participated with infinitely. Feels like communication overload and creation overload. And since there's no real desire or motive for anything in particular, anything could be the thing that one goes with. Like, I went in this building and I wanted to see if I could get the speakers to work because I want to play a cassette tape from a Walkman on speakers. Don't ask me why. And so I tested the speakers with my phone, and I played a song that I made on Fruity Loops years ago, and then I just started getting kind of dancey, and then I felt like singing, and then I sort of had this sense that it would be cool to explore making music again. But I was also feeling this sense of my heart being tugged to still help people like me. And I hope that maybe one day these videos might help people like me a little bit, but help in a more direct way. And I don't even know what that is, but I'm reading a book, On Our Own, by Judy Chamberlain, and it was written in the early 70s. And the stuff she's saying makes it sound like it was written today, because it's all the same issues, if you want to say issues, just slightly different, and slightly things have progressed since then. And people who haven't been through it would say, oh, it's progressed a lot, but in going through a lot of that stuff myself, the external structures are maybe a little bit more humane, but the internal paternalism and things like that is all still there, and just as harmful, whether very direct or subtly. And so that's tugging on my heart a little bit, and knowing that some of my friends are struggling, and I'm in this beautiful place and I see how great it is for me, but I've been having this sense of sensing other people's feelings, and I don't know if I am or if it's my own feelings, but there's stuff arising that I'm looking at and wondering if it's another message or if it's actually stuff from me, and maybe there's no difference. But actually I had a sense that these thoughts and different things that come up are actually an urge to communicate. So I hadn't talked to one of my friends in a week, and I only really noticed a couple days ago, partly because time goes by so fast here. But then when I noticed, I noticed that thoughts started coming up about, oh, why haven't they contacted me? Or, oh, I could contact them. And then this morning I just realized I can just call that person, because these sensations popping up in consciousness are an urge to communicate. Not to say, oh, why haven't you called me? But just to communicate, and then in communicating, all those wonderances will be answered. So I noticed that because I've been thinking quite a bit about communication today and how everything is communication, even a movement. So if I hear a sound and I look, I'm wondering what that is. And it could be, oh, an orange fell out of the tree. And that's a type of communication. It was the movement of the orange that communicated something to me, but at first I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what that meant. And then I found out it meant an orange fell out of the tree. And we may say that to ourselves or not, but the next time I hear that, I might not even look. I might just know that, oh, that was an orange that fell out of the tree. And how that relates in a way to thinking and overthinking is that when we're thinking all the time, we're not really looking because we think we already know. We're thinking based on past experience. We encounter a situation, we think we already know about it, so we're not really looking at that situation for new information, for new sounds, for new communication. We're hearing the old communications of our recorded thoughts and experiences. So I wrote something down about that, but I feel so many impressions of insights today. And in a way, maybe one insight is enough to have insight. And I wonder if insights are to continually have insights or for something else. And I sat and I watched this little hummingbird on the top of a tree. The top branches are bare, but the rest of the tree is all full of leaves. And this little bird was making his little machine-like, squeaky, chirping sound on and off for a good 20 minutes. And sometimes he would fly away for 30 seconds and come back. I'd look, he wasn't there, and then he'd come back. And I knew he was looking for his friend, or a friend. And it took a while. It could have been 20 minutes to half an hour. And I was sitting there watching, and I just felt this sense of this little being and how valuable this little being is, making his cute little sound. And I just felt, I don't know, I just felt very beautiful. And then finally, I actually heard, probably at the same time the cute little bird I was watching heard, another cute little machine-like squeak sound off in the distance, but not too far, because I don't think this sound travels too far. And then immediately the one that I was watching turned its head and just flew off the tree so straight back the other way that the sound came. And while he was flying, he made this little chirping sound that was totally different than the one he was making before, and he was making it as he was flying. And he just sounded so excited that he found his friend, or a friend, or it just seems so intentional what the bird was doing. And it's really fascinating to watch these birds call each other and sort of sit and wait for the other bird to enter the radius of sound and receive that communication. And I feel like our talking to each other as human beings might have started as calling out danger or just communicating from afar while we were in the fields or whatever we were doing. And in a way, it was partly to communicate danger. and partly to assess the situation and communicate that. But now we have this thought going on in our head all the time. It's always a danger signal. Any sound inside the head is just this danger signal going on and on. It's two little butterflies after each other in a good way. I saw two hummingbirds yesterday do this like loop-de-loop around each other, facing each other a couple of times. It was like a dance. It was so cool. I feel like I have so much to talk about, and that my self-dialogue has changed slightly since being here. And I also feel like in being here, I'm very fortunate. In a way, I've temporarily escaped that paradigm. But my friends aren't so lucky. And I've written a bunch of stuff down today and yesterday, and it's getting to be a lot again. So I decided I'm going to also share my notebook pages each day as I write them. Because oh my gosh, that's the smallest lizard I've seen yet. It's way over there, but it's tiny. Anyway, distracted by nature, that's a good thing. I love those lizards. I feel like the sense I'm having about helping people is a communication. And somebody I know wrote something that I read that was pretty powerful in terms of also acknowledging that the way people are being treated is not very nice. And the sad thing is that people think it's good. But those people have never experienced it before. Or are being paid to keep that order as it is. They've been educated to take a position in that established structure. So I might get to go to ECPR next month and hopefully bring it back. Where I just feel like I need to start working on that which I'll be working on when I get back. Because, I don't know, I guess my fear, I could talk about my fears around it if I have fears. I'd like to imagine I don't have fears about it, but I have fears about the unintended consequences. I partly fear that by going that path, I'll end up back under the power of those who are part of that system, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I guess part of it is focusing energy on that co-creation project that I want to put some energy into. Because if there's an element of thriving there, then that thriving energy can be used to help people who are just struggling to survive. And I guess that's my fear, is I know that I could be back in that situation of just struggling to survive in the snap of a finger. But I also remember that when I went to the hospital 2 weeks before I was put in the psych ward, I was 90 pounds and my friend took me there because she thought I was dying. My hair was falling out. and I was waiting in the lobby to be called, and I was so tired, even though I hadn't really slept at all. But I remember putting my head on her lap to fall asleep, and when I did, I experienced being in a womb. And then I experienced being in my own coffin, and I could hear my sister talking, and I felt like I was taking my last breath, and also I felt like I was going to crap my pants. Like I felt like I did, actually. And then all of a sudden I just stood up like a lightning bolt. And I thought I yelled out, "I stand for..." my niece, or "I stand up for my niece," meaning so many things, that I need to still be alive, to be there for the people I care about, and also that I want to be around to make changes so that the next generation doesn't have to go through stuff like this. And I guess at that point I decided to live, even though I was put through hell in order to, I don't know, who knows what it all means. But it was also weird because when I got taken into the next part of the hospital, I was sitting and all these people were across from me, and my friend and I were sitting on one side and they were on the other, and every single person went in, but nobody else came in the room after. I was the last one to go in to see the doctor, and nobody else came in, and it was really bizarre because it was a busy hospital and there's lots of people out in the other waiting room. So it was just so many bizarre things. It's symbolic, it's a communication, who knows. The point is that after I read this thing that someone I know wrote, I won't go into details because I try not to give any kind of details about anybody. And I just felt like this person just really stands up for people. And then I remembered that promise I made to myself. And oddly enough, 2 weeks after that, I almost died again. But then I was taken to the psych ward. So sometimes I grapple with how necessary all of that is. And part of it then is, how does one communicate this with love and not with fear and hate? Because that doesn't help. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help anything. But I gotta go. I have to make some food, and maybe I'll talk later, but I didn't even get to my notes, and maybe if I just start taking pictures of my notes and talk to myself when I can, more organically perhaps, then who knows. It's just been one of those rich and beautiful yet sad and interesting days. Maybe it's that there's so much beauty here, and I just wish more people could see this and feel this. So just know that if I ever do release this, it's with the utmost respect for humanity and out of love.